Rough life. Sorry. Nerves. First interview since,
It's been a long time. How long?
7 years.
Any advice for someone about to go in there?
Don't perform. They can smell performance a mile away. Just tell the truth, even if it's the ugly version.
Rain hits the windshield like gravel thrown by an angry hand. Darius Cole grips the wheel with both hands, knuckles pale, eyes locked on an elderly woman's silver sedan stalled dead in the middle lane of the expressway. Horns scream behind him. He doesn't think. He swerves onto the shoulder, throws his car in park, and runs into traffic wearing his only good suit. "Ma'am, pop the hood," he shouts through the glass. She's crying, hands shaking on the wheel, an oxygen tank rattling in the back seat. Darius doesn't ask questions. He pushes her car 20 feet to safety, while cars scream past inches from his shoulder, rain soaking through his jacket, his tie, his shoes. By the time a tow truck arrives, he's lost 40 minutes he doesn't have. He checks his phone. The interview started 6 minutes ago. Darius sprints through the lobby of Whitmore Consulting Group, glass doors sliding open to golden light, and marble floors that squeak under his wet shoes. Heads turn. A woman in a blazer whispers to a colleague. He doesn't care. He has one shot at this job, and he's already failing it before it starts. Hi viewers. Quick question before we go further. If you saw a stranger stuck on the highway in the pouring rain, would you stop to help, even if it cost you the most important interview of your life? Drop your honest answer in the comments. I want to know. He reaches the 40th floor soaked to the bone, chest heaving, and finds the waiting area empty, except for one person. A woman stands near a set of frosted glass doors, wearing a red dress sharp enough to cut glass, her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the city skyline, like she's rehearsing something in her head. She doesn't look like the other candidates. No portfolio, no nervous tapping foot, just stillness, and something unreadable behind her expression. "You look how I feel," Darius says, catching his breath. She turns, studies him. Doesn't smile right away. "Rough morning, rough life," he says, and immediately regrets how honest that sounds. He forces a laugh instead. "Sorry, nerves. First interview since." He stops himself. "It's been a long time." She tilts her head slightly. "How long?" 7 years. Something shifts in her eyes. Not pity, curiosity, like he just handed her a puzzle piece she didn't expect. "Any advice?" she asks. "For someone about to go in there?" Darius almost laughs at the question. Here he is, drenched, late, terrified, and somehow this stranger wants advice from him. But he answers anyway, because that's who he is. "Don't perform," he tells her. "They can smell performance a mile away. Just tell the truth, even if it's the ugly version." She studies him a long moment, like she's memorizing his face. "That's good advice, Mr. Cole." He blinks. "I never told you my name." She only smiles, stepping backward toward the frosted doors as they begin to part on their own. "See you inside, Mr. J." The doors close behind her. Darius stands frozen in the hallway, rain still dripping from his sleeve onto the marble floor. His name is Darius, not Mr. J. His badge, still clipped crooked to his soaked jacket, reads nothing close to that. So why did she say it like she already knew exactly who he was going to become? The receptionist calls his name and Darius barely hears it. He's still standing there running the woman's words through his head, the way she said, "Mr. J," like it was a fact instead of a mistake, when a voice cuts through his thoughts. "They actually let you in looking like that?" Darius turns. A tall man in a charcoal suit that costs more than Darius's monthly rent looks him up and down, smirking. His hair is perfect. His shoes gleam under the lobby lights. Nothing about him is damp, rattled, or 30 minutes late. "Preston Vale," the man says, extending a hand like he's doing Darius a favor. "I'm guessing you swam here. Helped someone on the highway," Darius says simply, shaking his hand once and letting go. Preston chuckles, glancing at the other candidates seated nearby. "Noble. Won't get you the job, but noble." Darius doesn't respond. He's learned not to waste energy on people like Preston. He sits, wipes rain from his neck with a napkin from his bag, and pulls out his resume, scanning the gap that always makes his stomach twist. 7 years. 7 years of school drop-offs, science fair projects, bedtime stories after his wife stopped being able to read them herself. 7 years since Whitmore Consulting was even a dream he let himself have. He built his entire career around solving problems for other companies once. Now he's the problem, at least on paper. A woman across from him leans over. "That gap," she whispers, not unkindly. "They're gonna ask." "I know," Darius says. "What do you tell them?" "The truth." Preston overhears and laughs under his breath. Bold strategy. The group is called into a long glass boardroom one at a time, but something strange happens before they even sit at the table. A panel of executives files in. 5 sharp-suited strangers with tablets and unreadable expressions, and behind them walks the woman in red. Darius's stomach drops. She isn't sitting with the candidates. She takes the head of the table. Preston straightens instantly, adjusting his tie like a soldier snapping to attention. The other candidates go rigid, eyes wide, suddenly reading every word they've said in the lobby like it might come back to haunt them. "Good morning," she says, voice calm, commanding, nothing like the uncertain stranger from the hallway. "For those who don't know me, I'm Celeste Whitmore, CEO." The room goes silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Darius feels heat crawl up his neck. He told her not to perform. He told her to tell the truth, even the ugly version. He gave career advice to the CEO of the company he's begging to hire him. Preston turns to him with a slow, wicked grin, leaning close enough to whisper, "Guess your highway hero act paid off after all, Mr. Cole. Too bad it's about to blow up in your face." Celeste doesn't sit like an executive running a routine interview. She studies each candidate like she's already decided something and is only confirming it now. When her eyes land on Darius, there's no smile, no wink, nothing to suggest the woman from the hallway even exists anymore. "Let's begin," she says. "Tell me about a time you failed publicly." Preston jumps in first with a polished, rehearsed answer about a strategic pivot that technically wasn't a failure. 2 other candidates follow with similar corporate spin, careful and safe. Then Celeste turns to Darius. "Mr. Cole?" The room waits. Preston smirks, clearly expecting him to crumble. Darius exhales. "I failed my daughter for 2 years," he says. "I was so deep in grief after my wife passed, I forgot to show up to her school plays, her recitals. I was present, but I wasn't there. That's the worst failure I've ever lived through. And it has nothing to do with a boardroom." Silence. Celeste doesn't blink. She simply writes something down. The interview hasn't even officially started, and somehow, Darius already feels like he's been examined down to the bone. "Let's raise the stakes," Celeste says, sliding a tablet across the table toward each candidate. "Real scenario. Real numbers. Your company just lost a major client. Revenue drops 18% overnight. You have 1 week before shareholders demand a plan. What do you do?" Preston answers instantly, like he rehearsed this exact question in the mirror that morning. "Immediate workforce reduction," he says. "Cut the bottom 20% of underperformers. Protect the leadership structure. Stabilize investor confidence within 72 hours. 2 executives nod along, tablets glowing with approval. Celeste's eyes shift to Darius. "Mr. Cole?" Darius leans forward, elbows on the table. "I wouldn't touch payroll first." Preston lets out a short laugh. "That's not strategy. That's sentiment." "No," Darius says, steady. "Sentiment is firing loyal employees to protect executive bonuses. Strategy is finding out why the client left before we start bleeding people who had nothing to do with it." The room shifts. Somebody's pen stops clicking. "Companies don't collapse because of one bad quarter," Darius continues. "They collapse when the people at the top panic and start eating the people at the bottom to survive. You want real stability? You fix the root problem, and you keep the people who'll fight to fix it with you." Preston's jaw tightens. Beautiful speech. Won't save the company. Neither will mass layoffs that tank morale and guarantee your best people leave within 6 months anyway, Darius fires back. Celeste says nothing, her expression unreadable, pen hovering above her tablet. For a moment, Darius wonders if he just talked himself out of the job entirely. Preston seizes the opening. "With respect," he says, tone dripping with false humility. Some of us have run real teams during a crisis. Not everyone in this room has current experience. His eyes flick deliberately toward Darius's resume. The 7-year gap sits there on the table like a wound reopened in front of strangers. Mr. Cole, one of the executives says carefully, can you walk us through your gap in employment? Darius feels every eye in the room land on him at once. Preston leans back, arms crossed, savoring it. My wife passed away 7 years ago, Darius says, voice even despite the tightness in his chest. I stepped back from my career to raise my daughter alone. No nanny, no family nearby. Just me, learning how to braid hair at midnight and help with algebra homework. I barely remembered myself. Nobody speaks. That gap isn't empty, he continues. It's the hardest, most demanding leadership role I've ever had. I just wasn't getting paid for it. Celeste sets her pen down slowly. Thank you for your honesty, she says. And for the first time since she walked into the room, something almost warm flickers behind her eyes. But it disappears just as fast, replaced by that same unreadable calm. She stands abruptly, smoothing her blazer. That will be all for today. Confusion ripples through the room. Preston blinks. Wait, you're not announcing anything? No, Celeste says simply, gathering her tablet. You'll all hear from us. She walks out without another word, leaving 8 candidates staring at each other, each one convinced and terrified that they might have already lost. Darius sits there long after the room empties, replaying every answer he gave, wondering if honesty just cost him the only real chance he's had in 7 years. The phone rings on a Tuesday morning while Darius is scrambling eggs for his daughter, Amara, who sits at the kitchen counter swinging her feet and humming a song from school.
Mr. Cole!
The voice on the line says, "This is HR from Whitmore Consulting Group. We'd like to formally offer you the position of Senior Operations Director." Darius nearly drops the spatula. "Say that again," he whispers. "You got the job, Mr. Cole. Congratulations." He turns to Amara, who's already staring at him, sensing something huge in the silence that follows. "Daddy," she says slowly, "did we win?" Darius kneels down, pulling her into a hug so tight she squeals, and for the first time in longer than he can remember, he lets himself cry in front of her without shame. 7 years of doubt, of overdue bills, of feeling like the world had quietly written him off. All of it breaks apart in that kitchen at 7 in the morning. The first 2 weeks at Whitmore feel like stepping into a different life entirely. His office has floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Co-workers greet him by name. Celeste personally checks in twice, walking him through systems, introducing him to department heads, treating him less like new hire and more like someone she's investing in directly. "You have good instincts," she tells him one afternoon, standing at his office door. "Don't let anyone talk you out of them." Darius starts believing, for the first time since his wife passed, that stability might actually be real again. He takes Amara for ice cream to celebrate his first paycheck. He starts saving for her braces. He even laughs, really laughs, for the first time in years. Then, on a Thursday morning exactly 3 weeks into the job, his access badge stops working. He stands at the turnstile scanning it twice, 3 times, while a line forms behind him. A security guard finally walks over, expression apologetic but firm. "Mr. Cole, I need you to come with me." "Is something wrong with the system?" Darius asks, laughing nervously. The guard doesn't answer. He leads Darius to a small office near HR, where 2 executives Darius has never spoken to sit waiting with a folder between them. "Mr. Cole," one of them says, sliding the folder across the desk, "we've received a formal report alleging you accessed confidential files related to our AI development project, files well outside your department's clearance." Darius stares at the folder like it's written in a language he doesn't understand. "I don't even have access to that department." "That's exactly the concern," the other executive says. "Someone did, using credentials tied to your login." "That's impossible," Darius says, his voice rising despite himself. "I've never even been to that floor." "Effective immediately," the first executive continues, ignoring him. Your employment is suspended, pending investigation. The room tilts. Darius opens his mouth to argue, to explain, to demand proof, but the words die somewhere in his throat. Two security guards appear at the door. "We'll need you to gather your things," one says quietly. "We'll escort you out." Darius walks through the office in silence, past co-workers who suddenly find their computer screens fascinating, past the same hallway where Celeste once told him not to let anyone talk him out of his instincts. He searches for her face, hoping for one explanation, one sign this is all some horrible mistake. He doesn't find her. The elevator doors close in front of him, sealing him inside with his box of belongings and a badge that no longer opens anything at all. The knock on the door comes at 8 at night, and Darius already knows before he opens it that it isn't good news. Two neighbors stand on his porch, arms crossed, faces tight with something between concern and suspicion. "We saw the news," one of them says carefully. "Thought you should know people are talking." Darius's stomach drops. "What news?" The neighbor hesitates, then holds up her phone. A local business page has reposted a leaked internal memo, blurred just enough to look official, accusing an unnamed employee of corporate espionage at Whitmore Consulting Group. The comments underneath already have his old company photo attached, torn from some forgotten press release years ago. "People are saying it's you," she says quietly. Darius closes the door gently, leans his back against it, and slides down until he's sitting on the floor of his own hallway. Phone buzzing non-stop in his pocket. Texts. Missed calls. A voicemail from a number he doesn't recognize. Upstairs, he hears small feet on the staircase.
"Daddy,
Amara stands at the top step in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit.
why is everyone saying you're a bad guy?"
The question hits harder than anything Preston said in that boardroom. Harder than the security guards walking him out. Harder than the silence from Celeste's office when he called 3 times and got nothing back. "I'm not, baby," he says, forcing his voice steady. "I promise you, I'm not." "Then why?" "I don't know yet," he admits, "because lying to her has never felt like an option, even now, but I'm going to find out." She comes down slowly and sits beside him on the floor, resting her head against his arm, without another word. They stay there together long after the porch light outside flickers off. Over the next several days, the silence from Whitmore becomes its own kind of cruelty. No official statement, no clear charge, just enough leaked rumor to destroy a reputation without ever proving a single fact. Former co-workers stop returning his texts. A friend from his old consulting days quietly unfollows him online. The world doesn't wait for the truth before it decides who you are. Darius calls Celeste's office every day for a week. Every day, a different assistant tells him she's unavailable. Then, late one night, an email appears in his inbox from an address he doesn't recognize. No subject line, no name, just 3 sentences. "You didn't do this. Someone wanted you gone before you started. Watch your back, Mr. Cole." Darius reads it 4 times, heart hammering, before checking the sender's information. Blank, untraceable. Whoever sent it clearly didn't want to be found. He sits in the dark kitchen, long after Amara falls asleep, staring at those 3 sentences glowing on his screen, replaying every face from that boardroom. Preston's smirk, the executive's silence, Celeste's unreadable calm. Someone out there knows exactly what happened to him. And for reasons he can't yet explain, they've just made it very clear this was never about a stolen file at all. A hand grabs Darius's shoulder in the parking garage, and he spins around ready to fight before he sees who it is. An older man in a gray janitor's uniform, name tag reading Marcus, glances over his shoulder twice before speaking. "You need to see this," Marcus whispers, pressing a small flash drive into Darius's palm. "I clean the executive floor. I hear things. I see things. What happened to you wasn't right." Before Darius can ask a single question, Marcus disappears between 2 parked cars, footsteps echoing off concrete until silence swallows them whole. Darius stands frozen, the flash drive warm from Marcus's grip, his heart pounding against his ribs. 3 weeks of silence, rumors, and unanswered calls, And now a stranger just handed him something that could either save his name or bury it completely. He doesn't wait to get home. He drives straight to the public library, finds an empty computer in the back corner, and plugs in the drive with shaking hands. Hi viewers, before we go further, tell me this in the comments. If a stranger handed you evidence that could clear your name, would you trust it immediately, or would fear stop you first? I want to hear your honest answer. Folders load onto the screen. Security logs, internal emails, access records dated the week his badge stopped working. Darius scans line after line, and something doesn't add up. His login credentials show activity on the AI development floor at 2 in the morning, a full 6 hours after he'd already left the building and picked Amara up from her aunt's house. He wasn't there. The system says he was. Darius pulls up another folder, and his stomach turns cold. Server logs show his badge scanning through 3 separate checkpoints that night, each one time-stamped with military precision. Except Darius remembers that exact night clearly. He was home, reading Amara a bedtime story about a dragon who learns to fly. Someone used his credentials while he was somewhere else entirely. He keeps digging, and the deeper he goes, the stranger it gets. Emails between departments reference a project code he's never heard of. Deleted messages, only partially recovered, mention containment and removal without explaining what either word means. Whoever built this file wanted it destroyed completely, but somebody, somewhere, saved fragments before they vanished. Meanwhile, across town, Preston Vale sits in a corner office 2 floors above where Darius used to work, sipping coffee from a company mug with his name freshly engraved on it. A promotion nobody expected, announced just days after Darius's suspension. Colleagues congratulate him. Nobody questions the timing. Darius doesn't know that yet. He only knows what's glowing on the library screen in front of him, growing more disturbing with every file he opens. He clicks one final folder near the bottom of the drive, labeled only with a date and timestamp. A video file. His hand hovers over the mouse, breath caught in his throat. He presses play. The footage loads slowly. Grainy security camera angles from a hallway Darius has never once walked through in his life. A figure moves across the screen wearing a badge clipped to their jacket, moving with familiar, deliberate steps toward a restricted door. Darius leans closer to the screen, eyes narrowing. He recognizes the face on that badge. It belongs to an employee who died 6 months before Darius even applied for the job. Darius nearly falls out of his chair, hand flying to his mouth as the library computer screen glows in front of him. He rewinds the footage 3 times, convinced he's misreading the image, but the face stays exactly the same each time, calm, confident, walking through a door he shouldn't have access to. A dead man's badge, opening a live door. Darius pulls out his phone, with shaking hands, and searches the employee's name from the badge. An obituary loads instantly. 6 months old. Sudden illness, the article says. Survived by a wife and 2 children. No mention of scandal, no hint of anything unusual. So how is a dead man's identification badge scanning through a restricted floor weeks after Darius joined the company? He keeps digging, opening file after file until a pattern starts forming, ugly and clear. Someone inside the IT department has been quietly recycling old employee credentials, reactivating dormant accounts, using deceased or terminated staff identities to move through the building undetected. No new hires, no new names, just ghosts wearing old faces, walking hallways nobody thinks to question. And whoever orchestrated it needed a scapegoat the moment things got risky. Darius's hands go cold. He wasn't randomly targeted. He was chosen. A new hire with a 7-year gap, easy to discredit, easy to walk out the door without anyone digging too deep into the timeline. Nobody questions the guy everyone already whispered about in the lobby on day 1. He copies every file onto a second drive, hides the original inside a hollowed-out book on his shelf at home, and starts building a timeline late into the night, cross-referencing dates, badge scans, and email fragments, until Amara's soft snoring down the hall becomes the only sound keeping him company. By sunrise, the picture becomes impossible to ignore. Millions of dollars in confidential AI research data has been quietly siphoned out of Whitmore Consulting Group over the past year, routed through recycled identities and buried deep inside shell accounts nobody bothered to audit. This isn't a stolen file scandal. This is corporate espionage running straight through the company's own walls. Darius stares at Preston's name, appearing 3 separate times across different access logs, always minutes before or after one of the ghost accounts logs in. Coincidence, maybe. Or maybe Preston knows exactly what's happening and simply isn't the one pulling the strings. Because someone above Preston's pay grade would need to approve system access at this level. Someone with real power. Someone who could bury an internal investigation before it even started. Darius sits back, exhaling slowly, the weight of what he's uncovered pressing against his chest like a hand he can't push away. Whoever did this reaches all the way to the executive floor. And they're still walking those halls right now, wearing a smile nobody suspects, while Darius sits in the dark, with proof of everything and absolutely no one left who will believe him. A black car pulls up outside Darius's house at 11 at night, headlights cutting through the rain-soaked street, and his front door opens before the driver even knocks. Celeste Whitmore steps out wearing a plain coat instead of her usual sharp blazer, glancing over her shoulder like she's checking for eyes that shouldn't be watching. "We need to talk," she says. "Now." Darius lets her inside, heart hammering, unsure whether to feel relief or suspicion. She sits at his kitchen table, the same table where Amara does her homework every night, and finally speaks the words Darius has waited 3 weeks to hear. "I never believed you were guilty," she says. "Not for 1 second. "Then why the silence?" Darius asks, voice sharp with 3 weeks of buried anger. "Why let me lose everything without a word?" "Because federal investigators asked me to," Celeste says. "They've been building a case against corporate espionage inside my own company for 8 months. If I warned you, if I showed favoritism, the entire investigation could collapse. I needed the person responsible to believe they'd won." Darius sits across from her, jaw tight. "So I was bait." "You were collateral damage in something bigger than either of us," Celeste admits, and for the first time, real guilt crosses her face. "And I hate that. I've hated every single day of it." She slides a folder across the table, thicker than the one HR handed him weeks ago. "Preston isn't the one running this," she says. "He's involved, but he's a pawn. Ambitious, reckless, easy to manipulate. The real architect sits on my board of directors." Darius's stomach drops. "Who?" Celeste hesitates, then says a name Darius never expected. A respected board member, decades of reputation, a man whose face appears in the company's annual charity brochures every single year. He's been selling proprietary AI research to a competing firm for over a year. Celeste continues, using recycled employee credentials to cover his tracks. When Preston mentioned hiring someone with a suspicious gap in employment, it created the perfect distraction, a convenient name to blame the moment things got dangerous. Darius feels something between rage and vindication rising in his chest. "You could have told me something. Anything." "I know," Celeste says quietly, "and I'm sorry. But tomorrow morning everything changes. The board meets at 9. Federal agents will be there. This ends." Darius stares at her, exhaustion and fury mixing together behind his eyes. "And what happens to me?" Celeste meets his gaze steadily. "Tomorrow, you find out exactly why they needed you gone." She stands, buttoning her coat, pausing at the door. "Get some sleep if you can. Mr. Cole, tomorrow's going to be the longest morning of your life." The door closes behind her, leaving Darius alone in his kitchen, with a folder full of names, dates, and a truth about to explode across boardroom walls that have hidden it for far too long. Federal agents move through the Whitmore Consulting lobby at exactly 9 in the morning, badges flashing, expressions unreadable, while confused employees whisper and step aside. Darius stands near the elevator bank, Celeste beside him, both watching the scene unfold like a storm, finally reaching land after weeks of gathering strength. Inside the boardroom, the same executives who once evaluated Darius's every word now sit in stunned silence as agents lay financial documents across the polished table. Fake contracts, falsified vendor payments, digital trails connecting recycled employee credentials directly to offshore accounts. Preston sits frozen at the far end of the table, sweat forming along his hairline as his name appears on document after document. "Explain this," one agent says flatly, sliding a folder in front of him. Preston's composure cracks instantly. "I didn't know what it was for," he stammers. "I just approved access requests. That's it. I swear." "Approved by whom?" the agent presses. Preston's eyes dart toward the board member sitting 3 seats away, a man whose calm expression hasn't moved since the agents walked in. The room turns toward him in unison. "This is absurd," the man says smoothly, standing halfway from his chair. "I've served this company for 15 years. Sit down," an agent says, voice firm enough to end the sentence completely. He doesn't sit. Instead, he moves fast toward the side exit, reaching for the door handle before 2 agents intercept him, pulling his arms behind his back as shock ripples through the room. Preston finally breaks, tears streaking down his face as he confesses everything. The falsified access logs, the recycled badges, the deliberate plan to frame the easiest target the moment suspicion started closing in. "I didn't want anyone hurt," he says weakly. "I just wanted the promotion." Darius watches from the doorway, chest tight, years of exhaustion finally settling into something closer to peace. Celeste turns to him quietly. "You weren't framed because you were weak, Darius," she says. "You were framed because your honesty threatened a fraud worth over $1 billion. Men like him can survive greed. They can't survive integrity standing in the room." Darius exhales slowly, watching agents lead the board member away in silence. The same hallway where security once walked him out, now filled with quiet, stunned recognition of what he actually endured. Celeste places a hand briefly on his shoulder. "There's one more thing," she says. "Tomorrow morning, my office, 9 sharp." "For what?" Darius asks. She almost smiles, the same quiet, unreadable expression from that very first day in the hallway. "You'll see." Sunlight pours through the windows of Celeste's office the next morning, as Darius steps inside, unsure what to expect after everything the past month has thrown at him. She's standing by the window, the same calm posture from their very first conversation, except now the silence between them feels different, safer. "I'm not offering you your old position back," she says, turning to face him. Darius's stomach tightens. "Then why am I here?" "Because your old position was never big enough for what you actually are," Celeste says, sliding a folder across her desk. Inside sits a formal offer letter, a title Darius has never seen before at any company. Chief of Ethical Operations and Organizational Integrity. "I want you building the systems that stop this from ever happening again," she says. "Not from a place of fear, from a place of principle." Darius sits with the offer for a long moment, thinking about Preston's tears, about the lower-level employees who unknowingly approved falsified requests without understanding what they were part of. "What happens to the smaller names caught in this?" he asks. "The ones who didn't know what they were signing off on?" "Termination, most likely," Celeste says. "Give them a second chance instead," Darius says. "Retraining, oversight, not unemployment lines for a crime they didn't orchestrate." Celeste studies him for a long moment, then nods slowly. "That's exactly why you're the right person for this role." Months later, Whitmore Consulting Group looks different. New leadership training now centers on accountability, transparency, and ethical courage, instead of quiet loyalty to whoever sits at the top. Employees who once whispered rumors about Darius now greet him with quiet respect in the hallways. Amara visits headquarters on a Saturday afternoon, eyes wide as she walks through the same lobby her father once sprinted through soaked in rain. She looks up at the framed photo near the entrance, her father standing beside Celeste at last quarter's leadership summit, and grins from ear to ear. "You did it, Daddy," she whispers. Darius kneels beside her, watching sunlight spill across the marble floor, exactly like it did that very first morning. "We did it together," he says. As he walks toward the boardroom for his first executive meeting, Celeste steps into the hallway beside him, the same quiet smile from that very first day crossing her face. See you inside, Mr. J, she says. This time, she isn't testing him. She's welcoming him in as an equal. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one. Tell me in the comments, what's one moment in your life where doing the right thing cost you everything, but ended up giving you something even better? Share it below. Someone out there needs to read your story today.